Chronic diseases such as autoimmune encephalitis can affect health-related quality of life of not only the patients, but also their families and caregivers. Today, we are going to hear the story of one of these caregivers. We're talking to Randy, whose wife, Lisa, has a form of autoimmune encephalopathy called Hashimoto's encephalopathy. Good afternoon, Randy. Thank you so much for sitting down with me today. HESA is anxious to tell the story of the effect that autoimmune encephalitis has on family and caregivers. Being a husband, father, and caregiver, it must be hard at times. What is your biggest struggle?
Just keeping up with everything.
That's hard.
It's luckily I'm working from home. I can most times. Every once in a while we have an incident and I have to go in. So that helps. Two of our three sons live close by. So, they come over, my daughter-in-laws come over, and before COVID, they used to take Lisa out to get manicures and pedicures and stuff like that. But it's just keeping up with work, taking care of the house, I cook everything anymore.
Lisa.
Well, she forgets.
I know.
Okay. And so sometimes I put a load of laundry in and then I find it 3 days later, or she'll put something on the stove and forget about it. So
it's that short-term memory stuff.
Well, when Lisa was first diagnosed, we went to the University of Virginia. The neurologist up there, Dr. Hall, she was saying it's not short-term memory. You're a computer guy, so you know how everything in a computer goes to cache first, then it goes to the memory? A lot of her stuff never got out of the cache to memory.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
Yeah, that's how Dr.
Wow. So, you're leading into the next actual question. How long was it before Lisa got diagnosed? I mean, what kind of process did you go through with her?
We went through two moron doctors, and I'm not going to pull punches. They were idiots. The first one, Lisa started having migraines that were lasting forever. His big solution was prescribe more pain meds. And we're like, migraines don't last for 2, 3, 4 weeks. What is going on? Oh, it's a complex migraine. Don't worry about it. And he treated her for, like 3, 4 years. And all he would do is prescribe more pain meds. Finally, Lisa was driving to work one day. She worked in Virginia Beach. And I was at work. She calls me up and says, I don't know where I am.
Oh, my gosh.
And I'm like, what do you mean? You get off the interstate? Like, no, I'm on the interstate. I don't know where I am. So she described what was around. I knew where she was. I left work and I went the back way to get to her. Well, I'm about 3/4 of the way there. The girls that worked for her called up and said, you need to get here now. We've already called 911.
Oh my gosh.
So I get there and she had a stroke. Blown to the left side, slurred speech, you name it. Every textbook symptom of a stroke she had. They took her by ambulance to a hospital, the emergency room attending neurologist was like, yeah, she's had a stroke. He called doctor, was like, don't waste your time testing. It's all symptomatic of complex migraines.
Oh my gosh, you're kidding me.
Yeah. Then 4 weeks later, she had another one.
Oh my gosh.
She never totally recovered from that one.
Oh.
We complained, I'm retired military, we have TRICARE, so we have to go through them to get referrals. So, like I said, his big thing was he wouldn't listen to you. He knew everything. I know what's wrong with her. Don't question me. And we're like, whatever. Then we basically demanded a different neurologist. We got one. I cannot pronounce the woman's name. She's a graduate of the University of Beijing. We call her Little Mary Sunshine because everything's a vitamin deficiency.
Oh, no. Oh.
Yeah. She tested Lisa, found she had low vitamin D. and put her on mega doses of vitamin D. Okay, her vitamin D level got up. She kept getting worse. And it was like, oh, this takes time. This takes a lot of time. It's like, we don't have time.
Not when she's having symptoms like that. My gosh.
Well, she would and she would have absence, where all it is, stairs up, gets that 1,000-yard stare, and she just zones out for like 30 seconds and then right back to where she was, not realizing she mentally was not there. So we finally was like, this is ridiculous. Went back out to the base hospital at Langley Air Force Base, and we saw Dr. Mick had the bedside manner of Attila the Hun in the most colorful language you've ever seen, but he was awesome. We what's going on. He had actually seen a case of encephalopathy before.
Wow, that's unusual.
Well, he thought Lisa actually had a form of MS, but his referral wanted her to go see Dr. Love the name. He's nuts, but he's great. He's the top MS guy, like in the east half of the country. Okay, so Dr. referral, Dr. was telling, this is a doctor's referral saying this woman has a serious neurological issue and has been getting substandard care at best. So at that point, we need to send, and he said she needs to see Dr. So we go see Dr. He did a bunch of tests, and there were things that MS did not explain. And he had also seen a couple cases of encephalopathy. So we lucked out with those two. So we did a bunch of testing locally. Then he sent us up to the University of Virginia Neurology Department, and they did a bunch of testing, and they're the ones that actually made the diagnosis. Doctor suspected, but he wanted them to look at it. So we go up there, and it's like, when we get there, she's in the hospital for a week. They would get her at 7 a.m. to take her for testing. She's supposed to be back at 8. There would be somebody at 10 minutes to 8 waiting by the door with a wheelchair to take her to her next test.
Oh my gosh.
Well, the night we like on a Monday night at 5 o'clock, 7:30, they're taking her for scanning.
They weren't fooling around, eh?
Oh no, they did everything. They did we used to call it a spinal tap. Now they call it, a lumbar puncture.
Yeah.
And she moved a couple hours after that. Well, she was supposed to go see the ophthalmology department. So they pack up the portable ophthalmology department, bring it to the room.
Oh, wow.
I'm sitting there, and there's like the head ophthalmologist, 4 or 5 doctors, a few more residents or interns or whatever that are learning to be ophthalmologists. There were times we had like 4 or 5 doctors and 4 or 5 doctor wannabe room at a time.
It's amazing, though. I mean,
oh yeah, it was. Well, I think the thing was they realized what it was and how often you get a chance to see it.
Exactly.
Because one of the things, when we got the official diagnosis from UVA, I called Dr. office up and said, hey, those complex migraines? It's actually this. I just wanted Dr. Goldberg to know. The nurse was like, well, hang on a second. And I quote, well, I actually have it. Where did I write it down here? Oh, some people don't think that's an actual diagnosis. They don't think that exists.
Yeah. Well, I've heard that before. Unfortunately, we've all heard that before.
Yeah. But like I said, though, we lucked out because Dr. was a pain in the butt and, pushed through her getting to see Dr. who recognized what was going on, who sent her to UVA for diagnosis.
Thank God.
Yeah. Otherwise, if we'd have stayed with those 2 other knuckleheads, quite honestly, she'd be dead by now.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, some people don't survive. If they don't get the proper treatment, and her
Well,
having such serious symptoms like that.
yeah, because it was at the point, if I were to introduce you to her, she wouldn't remember you. She could remember people she met 10 years ago, but she can't remember somebody she met 10 minutes ago. Her symptoms when we first started getting decent treatment were really bad.
What were her symptoms besides the stroke and the seizures?
Stroke, memory, no memory. It was to the point she'd be talking to you way through a sentence. Just stop.
Did she have a hard time speaking, like
Yeah.
getting words out?
We actually eventually sent her to speech therapy. She got to go to speech therapy, thankfully. And she still has, she can convey or she gets the thought, getting the thought out gives her problems.
Yes,
It's
I have
not
the
as
same thing.
But she does have that issue.
So, I mean, she had all kinds of symptoms that actually pointed directly to an encephalopathy.
Yes, after we got a doctor that knew what they were looking for. And oh, well, the test UVA, they did confirm she had 2 strokes. Just not the typical brain bleed, you see it on a MRI type, but she did have 2 strokes, and UVA did confirm that.
Did she have an EEG done? Do you remember?
Oh yeah, she had EEGs. I know she's had at least 2.
Yeah, did it show slowing? Like on one of the sides? That's usually part of it. It shows slowing.
I do remember that there was something in the EEG that
Pointed.
It pointed that way. I cannot remember the specific. And then the MRI,
processing was slowing down.
Oh, brain processing was slowing down. That's what the EEG.
Yeah.
Yeah. And an MRI showed she had kind of spots on her cortex.
What an ordeal to go through for you and your family and Lisa. That's awful.
And basically, we wasted 5 years, but didn't have a clue.
That
was the issue with us, because if Dr. Colin, doctors would dig, but if would have been confident enough to look at something other than what he thought. Hey, maybe I'm not the know-all be-all, and this is not just a complex migraine.
Look outside the box.
Yeah, he refused to look. I mean, we're like, this is not right. What else could it be? And well, I'm the neurologist here. Who are you?
Exactly.
I'm the woman that's in pain and has all these problems. That's who I am.
Exactly. It's frustrating beyond belief. And as lay people, I don't know about you, but I was brought up to trust whatever the doctor said. You don't question a doctor. I mean, I'm that old, right? And you just, you just never ask for second opinions. You just took it for what it is. If you would have done that, it would have been just awful for you guys.
Well, you fast forward a woman that works for me. She's also retired military, and TRICARE sent her to see Little Mary Sunshine. She has I forgot exactly what she's got, but her diagnosis was a vitamin D deficiency.
Oh boy.
And I'm like, I looked at her and said, who's your doctor? She told me, like, I know her. I said, get a doctor, quick.
And vitamin D can cause a lot of issues if you're lacking it, but when somebody has such severe symptoms like Lisa had, I mean, definitely I would be thinking again outside the box, but doctors are trained the old saying, think of horses when you hear a hoof beat, instead of a zebra. But the thing with rare diseases, they have to think of zebras too, because they do exist.
Yeah.
And Lisa's a good example.
And like I said, when I called up the office and told them what it actually was, and well, that's if you believe that exists,
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, got news for you. I trust the University of Virginia Neurology Department a whole lot more than you.
Unfortunately, that's still something that I can't say they don't believe it exists anymore, but it's such a controversial diagnosis. And I think that's where it's so hard to get anybody to research it. It needs to be researched, but it's hard.
Because it's controversial or questionable even, that becomes an issue getting treatment. Because Dr. Floyd is like, I want to do this for her, and Lisa's been declared disabled, and Social Security will come back, well, that's experimental. And he's like, everything we try is experimental.
Exactly. Off-label.
Yeah, well, when she was diagnosed, they explained it to us. There's 3 basic treatment things. Somebody that does not respond to anything, and they usually pass away fairly quickly. The group Lisa's in, something works for a little while, and then it doesn't. Then you try something else, works for a little while, and it doesn't. And then the group where they find something right off the bat, and they're fine. We're on the 5th different treatment plan for Lisa. This one seems to be working really good.
What is Lisa taking right now? What is her treatment plan?
It's azathioprine.
Okay.
And every 3 weeks she gets IVIG via infusion.
I myself has been on that for 10 years.
Yeah, and that's done because when she was first diagnosed, they put her on dose of the prednisone, like 65 milligrams a day for 4 years. And it kept her alive, but your hair falls out, your teeth get bad, your bones get bad. It has all kinds of really, really nasty side effects.
Such bad side effects for long-term use.
So they got her, that kind of quit working. Then they put her on literally chemo, and then an anti-rejection drug for transplants. And finally, we're on the IV and the azathioprine, and that seems to be working really well.
So right now, she's doing pretty well, Randy, you feel?
Yeah, she's hanging in there. She has good days, bad days. Bad days, she still cannot formulate the thought or convey the thought. She's formulated, I should say. She will forget, like, everything, like right in the middle. She'll be asking me something and then just never mind and walk away.
How frustrating for her.
Yeah.
And for you guys too. I mean, for everyone. It's frustrating.
Like I said, the last couple of days she's been doing pretty good. And you just you figure out real quick if it's a good day or a bad day accordingly.
Unfortunately, it sounds like remitting and relapsing type of HE. A lot of people have a crossover. They have a progressive and the relapsing and remitting forms. And, that's the way it is. Some days are good, some days are bad. And, and some of that probably is permanent brain damage that she had from not being diagnosed correctly in the beginning.
Oh, no doubt.
Yeah. How sad is that? This is kind of a personal question. How has it affected your own health, Randy? As it, I know being a caregiver is extremely stressful.
Stress levels can get high, especially when you're trying to explain something or reason and it's just not going to happen. But you got to try to, because she doesn't understand a lot of times. And so, like I said, it can get stressful. I've got a wood shop. I go out there and make sawdust. I got to stay active. I've got to do something all the time. I just can't sit and watch a movie or do anything like that. It drives me nuts. So as long as I can keep doing something, that helps alleviate stress.
I agree with you on that. I always tell everybody, yep.
Yeah.
Stay
And like
busy.
I said, pre-COVID, the kids would pick her up, take her places, take her to the museum with our granddaughter. Oh, wow. Talk her into that. Yeah.
But it's important for a caregiver to find some other outlet to have besides just caregiving, because otherwise, the stress alone can eat you right up.
Oh, yeah. And like I said, I'm able to work, so I can do that. That's a different kind of stress.
Yeah.
And I do woodworking. The cooking is actually stressful for me too.
Well, it's something men aren't used to doing their whole entire life.
Well,
Right.
I got roped into it. Well, I went through college on a cross country and track scholarship. My roommates went through college on a football scholarship. Okay. 3 football players, 1 runner. Football players get a lot more money, scholarship money, than runners do. So the trick was my sophomore, junior, and senior years of college. The deal was I'd give them a grocery list. They go to the store, buy everything, and I cook dinner.
Aha, you were the cook.
So the first couple of months of my sophomore year, before I got the technique done and everything, calls to my mom, my grandmothers, my aunts. Hey, how do you make this? Where everybody else is eating leftover pizza, ramen noodles, and tomato soup made out of ketchup, we're eating good.
I love it. I love it. So you had training. You had training.
Oh yeah.
Well, lucky Lisa.
Even I cook. I mean, back in the day, she could cook.
Well, I bet she could.
Hate it, but she could cook. It's like, hey, this is great. Can you make it again? I don't know what I put in it. This, a little that.
Well, that's the way I've always cooked. I never have a recipe. It's just whatever, and lucky for me, I can still cook, but I do set a timer every time I cook anything, because my memory, I have a short-term memory loss, so I have to. I don't have a choice, or everything would be burned.
Early, Lisa will put something on the stove and totally forget about it.
Yeah, I have to put a timer on. I put a good old Alexa, set the timer.
We got the.
I was just going to ask you, do you think your children were affected also, your boys?
Yeah, I think a little bit. When we were trying to find out, all I knew was wrong with mom, and nobody knew what. I think that was really frustrating for them. And it's and they got girlfriends and stuff, and it's like, how do you explain to your girlfriend your mom doesn't remember day to day today?
Yeah, nobody knows. Even after a diagnosis, nobody knows what the heck encephalopathy is.
Yeah, and again, not knowing, being able to, something's wrong with my mom. We don't know. It did, but our family's kind of weird. Okay, we got a problem. This is what we got to do. We're going to do it. Why whine about it? Does no good.
Good attitude.
And that's, it's like, that's how I was brought up. It's like, my dad's had cancer 5 times, and it's like, I get a call after the surgery. Oh yeah, they had to pull out like 4 feet of my intestine or something like that, but I'm fine.
strong people.
I got shot in a hunt. I thought I was a bird. The phone call from the hospital to my parents lasted just about 10 seconds. My uncle, because back then it was collect. This was before cell phones. I was like 14. And I got some shotgun BBs in the back. Nothing overly serious, but it sounds really cool. The phone call was like, yeah, Randy got shot. It's going to be fine. We'll be about an hour and a half late getting home. Click. And my dad, oh, Bick said he was going to be fine. We're good.
No rushing to the hospital for you.
Yeah. Well, the hospital was about the size of this room. It's up in the National Forest in Michigan, where I got shot. They took me to the closest medical hobby shop. But why worry? He's going to be fine.
Well, that's a great attitude to have, dealing with Lisa's issues too, because sometimes things are out of your hands. You get to a point and
that's it. It's like we do what we can do and we move on. There's no sense whining about it. It does no good. And the boys and their wives realize what's going on. So they know that, it's going to take a couple extra minutes, but we'll be okay.
Oh, I think that's wonderful. And that's a great attitude that you've passed on to your kids. I can tell you that. Randy, what would be your number one concern right now for Lisa and the family in general? What would you think you would want to say?
I think the biggest concern is just making sure she can keep getting treatment. Because it's like Dr. Lloyd has to justify the IVIG every so often. In fact, he's doing that right now because 23rd of February, last scheduled treatment. So he's got to go back into Medicare and justify her getting additional treatments.
Oh boy, I know that one. Yep.
Yeah. As long as you keep getting the treatment, that's being effective, I think that's the big thing.
And it's hard with insurances and Medicare. I get it. I'm without my treatment for 3-4 weeks because of having to be what's the word do I want? I'm
reevaluated.
Thank you. You understand I have HE also. But I have to be reevaluated and get reapproved again. And if Lisa's like I am, when you go 3-4 weeks without it, you start to slope back down.
Oh, yes. We ran into that because there was a shortage of it, was it about a year and a half ago?
Yep.
And it was really annoying to us that they were actually talking about it on the TV down here in the local news. And there's a woman, oh yeah, I have to get it every week, and we're like, every week? Wow. But then we talked to Dr. Lloyd. Oh yeah, I saw that. She's getting it and it's not going to help her a bit.
Oh, wow.
When she was diagnosed, because people didn't know what encephalopathy was, heck, it took me 3 months to learn how to pronounce it. But
me too.
It's with a yeah, whatever. But it's like when we applied for disability through Social Security. You hear, oh, you got to apply, you got to get a lawyer, you got to do this, and as soon as they say you get a lawyer, like the, but
oh boy, yeah.
Lisa, a occupational psychiatrist, all the people up at the University of Virginia, Dr. all of these test results, we packaged it all up and sent it up.
That's
and then
wonderful.
And we didn't hear anything. And
It takes a while, yeah.
Well, it took a long time, even for Social Security. Finally, one evening, we get a call from a nurse up in Philadelphia, and she's like, oh, she's going to be approved, but we had to call around because we didn't understand a lot of the things that were in the package you sent up.
Oh my gosh.
I'm impressed that they actually, like, we got to ask somebody. But
Oh,
she said they were provided, how'd she put it? Normally when somebody applies for Social Security, if we get 100 pages of documentation, that's a big package. Your doctors, the hospitals sent over 850 pages.
oh my gosh.
And she said it took a while to go through. And normally they have she was the case nurse. She would review it and make a recommendation, send it to the doctor. She's looking at this stuff. She says, I got to talk to somebody. She didn't understand a lot of it. And I think that probably, especially, 10 years ago, people didn't have a clue.
No.
And
In fact, I was just going to ask you, Mandy, how long ago was she diagnosed?
10 years.
That's about me too. So nobody knew nothing.
Well, what was kind of scary is UVA, when we got the diagnosis, her prognosis, 5 years.
Yeah. Isn't that terrible? Yes.
Yeah, and they said she'll make it about 5 more years.
That's a shocker.
Yeah, but we're going on 10, 11 now. I think we're working on 11 now.
Yeah, my neurologist ended up telling me I needed to quit work or I was going to die. And that was quite a shock to me. I was like, what? It's like, and that was 10 years ago. Same time.
Well, yeah, Lisa,
2011.
she used to, she was a retail manager. What she would do was hired, she'd go into these stores, find out why they were failing, and turn them around. And
quite a job.
She was very, very good at it. And like I said, it was like she'd get the headaches, then the absent seizures, and those were like the first clues something was going on. And it was funny because like she'd give the girls would be sitting there with a calculator and she'd do the math faster in her head than they could do it on a calculator. But when she couldn't work, it was driving crazy. But initially, we'd be driving through our neighborhood and she'd be looking around, just kind of lost. She's like, I know I'm okay because I'm in the car with you, but I have no idea where we're at. We'd be too blind. And this is the neighborhood she lived in since she was a kid.
Oh my gosh.
And so she can't drive because if she happens to have one of those days, she could drive somewhere and totally forget where she's at.
How awful.
So
awful.
So she's tried doing stuff like that, A, to keep busy, and B, she can sell crafts on something like that. And that way, if she's having a bad day, she doesn't have to do it.
It's just something people don't understand if they're not aware of what this disease is and what it can do. They're not aware of what somebody goes through, before they're even diagnosed. And
oh, yeah.
It's terrible. It's terrible.
And what about people that don't have doctors like Dr. who can recognize it?
Exactly.
All they know is, something's wrong with me. Depending on where you live or what insurance you have, you may not even get to a neurologist.
Exactly right. Exactly right. And then you have to fight. And if you don't have an advocate like yourself to actually go with you and help you, because when you're going through all this, you cannot advocate for yourself. You're not well enough.
Initially, no. Like I said, my language can get a little colorful at times. 20 years in the military, I picked up a word or two. And when we would talk to Dr. and for the life of me, I can't even pronounce that woman's name. After you talk to them initially and they just keep blowing you off, my language would get colorful.
Well, I can imagine the frustration you must have felt.
Oh yeah, because it's like, you're sitting there, it's something else. The diagnosis is wrong. What else can it be?
You're the husband, you know your wife.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, she recognized things weren't right, and if Lisa can say this isn't right, I'm like, yeah, no kidding, but like I said, we got very lucky. First, it was Doc got at Langley Air Force Base. He's like, something's wrong. You got to go see somebody else. Then we got Dr. He's like, yep, Doc was right. And we've been seeing Doc ever since, like I don't know, 6-7 years now. And he's her biggest advocate too. I mean, yeah, I go in there, but he's like, hey, guess what? We're going to do this. I want to test this. Oh, I called a buddy up at Johns Hopkins, or I called the Mayo Clinic to see about this, see how this would help. Because there's a friend of his, Johns Hopkins, who's studying encephalopathy, and he's finding like there are a whole lot of different kinds.
Yes, there's an umbrella with many different spokes on them with encephalopathy. Yes.
Like, oh, you have Hashimoto's encephalopathy.
Yeah.
And doctor like, hang on. And then it's like autoimmune encephalopathy. And they're even breaking it down, it's like, no, you have autoimmune encephalopathy, but it's this kind.
Yes.
That has it, but it's that. So as the research and everything goes on, they're finding out more and more and more. And that allows for better diagnosis for people. And as they publish, other doctors can see it, so they know it's not just a complex migraine.
Exactly. And I'm so glad to hear that there's a doctor there doing research, because that's what HESA wants to start doing, is getting more into the research of what causes HE, because it's one of the least researched autoimmune encephalitises that are out there, and yet it's the most misunderstood. So I really feel that it's something that needs to be done. It just really needs to be done. And after this interview, I get with Lisa or you and find out what that doctor's name is, if you know it. That's research.
But
that's our goal. That's our goal, is to get involved with that.
If you get doctors at UVA, at Johns Hopkins, at Mayo Clinic saying this is what this is, then doctors like can't say, well, that's if you think it exists. We don't think it's real. It's like, well,
Exactly.
dude, the smartest people on the planet say it's real.
Well, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's so frustrating that, like I said, it's so hard to explain to somebody. It's so frustrating. Randy, as I close this off, and I guess, is there anything else that you would like to add for people that are caregivers and caregiving somebody that is experiencing what you have with the autoimmune encephalitises with Lisa?
Be flexible and
That's good advice.
Because every day there are days where like, almost back to normal, and then there's other days where she remember where the living room, and it's just you've got to be patient, because every day is different.
Well, you're a good guy, that's for sure. And
I used to get hit if I wasn't.
well, I really want to thank you for taking your time to sit down and talk with us today, and put up with my barking dogs. HESA really appreciates it. Thanks, Randy.
You're welcome.
Give Lisa a hug for me.
Okay.
Bye-bye now.
Bye.